I am Rachna Jaiswal from Sanskar International School, Prayagraj. Today, I will discuss the topic Meaningful Assessment for the Meaningful Learning. My dear friends, without learning, assessment is not possible. So let's first learn what is learning. The acquisition of knowledge or skills through study, experiences, or being taught in is learning. Actually, it is a continuous process and it occurs all the time in our life. Learning is the modification in behavior through experiences. Learning never exhausts the mind as we need food for our stomach. Similarly, brain needs learning. But learning should be meaningful or fruitful. If we learn unnecessary things which have no use in our life, that will be the sheer waste of time. So let's first what is learning and types of learning. Here I have written few types of learning. The first one is learning by playing. We have often seen that generally to small kids, or we can say in primary or pre-primary sections, teachers use this method. They get involved with the student in playing. In this way, students get attracted with the teachers and they learn. Rote learning, learning by memorizing. This is also the one of the important learning because with this learning, the retention power, the learning power gets strong of a student. In early stage, we often use this method. Visual learning, learning by reading, by watching. Whenever we ask students to read the chapter, to read the answers, so that is called learning by reading. Read the poem. Reading anything is called reading. Visual learning. Now verbal learning. By reciting informations loudly. Reciting poems, reciting tables, reciting shlokas are all come under this verbal learning. Oral learning. This is one of the most beautiful learning. A teacher puts, or you can say mix some music to their story, or we can say in poem, which attracts the students. Physical learning, it involves the body parts, or we can say learning by doing. In this learning, our sense organs also get involved, which helps us in learning. The next one, activities involves in this learning, that is physical learning. Logical learning, by asking question. Actually, logical learners are very keen learners. They want to learn the whole thing in a time, and they ask questions furiously time to time to learn whole things. Now, social learning. What is social learning? Social learners are the learners who wants to learn in groups. They enjoy the group learning. And solitary learning. These learners are independent learners. They don't want to get involved themselves in the society, that means in the groups. They only want to learn individually. Social learning is also called the peer learning, learning with friends. So these are the few types of learning. Now let's learn what is assessment. Did you ever notice to your mother that after cooking food, she wants to know the result, that what is the taste of the food? Similarly, my dear friends, whenever anybody does any work, he or she wants to know the result. As learning is a continuous process, similarly, assessment is also a learning process. So whenever teacher teaches to his students, he or she wants to know the result. Either the students have learned that chapter or not. So this is done by the assessment. He does not only assess to the children indirectly, or he assess himself or herself also. The assessment of students is also involves the assessment of teachers. So here I have written few types of assessment. The first assessment is formative assessment. which includes before and during the learning. It is done before or during the learning. What is before learning? Before learning, a teacher assesses the previous knowledge of a student, that how much does she know about this topic. And during the learning, that during teaching, when a teacher asks the question in the class, that is during the learning. Summative assessment. We can say that this assessment is done at the end of the learning. You can say after the completion of a set of a syllabus or the completion of its one or two chapter, whenever a teacher takes the exam or assess the students through worksheets or by activity or by pen and paper test, that assessment is known as the summative assessment. The next one is self-assessment. Assessment by own self. In this student, I want to share one of my experience which I generally use in my class, that in class I explain the questions to the students and make them solve the questions. Then after, I solve those questions properly in a paper and forward them and in the WhatsApp to my students and ask them to tally that same work. Either you have done correct or wrong. So this involves assessment by own self, or you can say self-assessment. They used to find their own mistake in this assessment. Peer group assessment. This is the assessment when students assess their when students tries to find their own mistake. What in this assessment I also do in my class. What do I do is, my dear friends, I ask students to exchange your notebooks with each other and find out the mistakes, and this is called peer group assessment. The next one is individual assessment. The assessment by teacher. We all know when a teacher checks or assess a student or give marks to individually each student, that includes individual assessment. Group assessment. By dividing the students in groups. What do we do, students, my dear friends, in this? We divide the whole class in 4 to 5 groups and ask them or give them a topic of the same whatever we are teaching at that time, and give them a task for the same. So in this way they assess themselves in group, either which group has done the best one. So my dear friends, learning involves assessment and assessment involves learning. So in this way, this is make the assessment fruitful. Thank you and have a nice day.